Hello, this is a video on how to play checkers. Now, checkers is a fairly simple game. It's similar to chess in that both games involve capturing your opponent's pieces, and there are some similar, rules, but this is quite a way simpler. And so, if you saw how to play chess and you were like, this seems kind of complicated, then you might want to start out with how to play checkers because it's much more simpler. So, so if you're playing in real life, obviously you need a checkerboard, and obviously you could also set this up yourself just by getting a piece of cardboard, making your own checkerboard, and cutting out black and red circles. And so you have to determine who has the first turn, first of all. And you can do this using a coin toss or your own method, rock, paper, scissors. Um, but essentially, the player who goes first will have the black pieces. The player who has the black pieces always goes first. And so when you're setting up the board, you have to set it up such that you are sitting across from your opponent with the board in between you. And you'll notice that the board has 64 squares. So the board is 8 by 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you place the board such that each player has a light colored square on their bottom right. So I'm sitting down here. On my bottom right, I have a light colored square. My opponent is sitting up there. On his bottom right, he has a light colored square. You could also say that on your bottom left, he has a dark colored square. On my bottom left, I have a dark colored square as well. Now, you have to place the checkers on the board. And so each player places their pieces on the 12 squares. So each player starts off with 12 pieces, and you place these 12 pieces on the 12 dark squares closest to you. So the first 3 rows and the dark squares in each row. And so you know you have the board set up correctly when each player's pieces are taking up 3 rows each, and there are 2 rows left in the middle um, for playing the game. Now, before you start playing, and this probably won't apply, but in tournaments, they often sometimes have a rule, um, which is a 5-minute time limit on making one move. And in real life, it probably won't take 5 minutes to make a move. Because obviously, if you don't play checkers competitively, you're not as skilled as a competitive player, and so you don't have to put as much thought into your moves. Versus a competitive player who needs all that time to carefully plan out their move. And so the player with the black checkers once again starts first, and checkers can only move diagonally. So this checker right here can only move here. This checker in the middle, so the second checker in the third row can move either here or here, here or here, once again here or here. You can only move a checker diagonally onto a dark square. And the checkers stay on the dark squares for the entire game. Now, obviously, so you just move diagonally, and once you get close to your opponent's checker, you jump and capture the checker. So you capture checker by jumping over it, kind of like you're doing a bunny hop or leapfrog over your opponent's checker. And once you capture the checker, you move it off the board. And first of all, to jump a checker, the space on the other side of your opponent's checker has to be empty, so you can actually leapfrog. You can't leapfrog over something if there's a wall in front of you. Similarly, you can only leapfrog or capture your opponent's checker if there is an empty space in front of it. Number two, and this is something that people often don't know, is that if there is a move on the game board such that your opponent's piece could be captured, it is mandatory and you have to take that move. You cannot just say, oh, I could capture my opponent's piece, but I choose not to during this move. No, you have to take that move. If you have two moves or multiple moves from different pieces of the board where you can capture your opponent's checker, then you can choose which move to make. But other than that, it is mandatory and you are obligated to capture your opponent's checker. Well, not even obligated, it is mandatory to capture your opponent's checker. And another rule that people often don't know is that if you're capturing a checker, so let's say there's a checker right here, a red checker right here in this spot, and I capture it, and then there's another red checker which I could jump over. I have to take that move as well. So you can actually get more than one move in a row if the move is capturing. So like I said, if you can capture an opponent's checker, you have to take that move. Similarly, if you make a move, so if you capture a checker and it puts you in position to capture another checker, you keep capturing checkers until you cannot anymore. And the third rule that we need to talk about, our checkers start out here. They can only move diagonally forward. Eventually, they will reach the end of the board, and when they do, they become kings. Now, the king can move forward or backward diagonally, and that is what sets it apart from the other checker pieces, in that it can move forward or backward. However, you can, like I said, when you're capturing a checker, if it puts you in position to capture another checker, you can make multiple moves. Similarly, if a king captures a checker, let's say this is a king, but it's not, let's just pretend it is, and I capture a checker here, but then, or so let's say this is a king and I capture a checker here, but then there's another red checker over here, I can move backward and forward, capturing as many checkers as I want. So it's the same rule as before. You have to capture all the checkers in your you have to capture all the checkers in one move that you can. But the king has more opportunities for this because he can move backwards or forwards in the same move to capture all the checkers that he wants to. And there is no limit to how many kings you have. So if somehow you get all of your pieces to the end of the board, then all of your pieces become kings. And the opponent wins, and so you win when you capture all of your opponent's checkers. And so now that's the basic rules. Let's go through some strategies. You want to play a game that gets all of your pieces into the board as soon as possible. Work on capturing your opponent's checkers instead of trying to defend your own. Capture your opponent's checkers. Try to do it as much as you can. And move your pieces together. You don't want all your pieces here. So let's say I have all my pieces here. I don't want some lone checker here named Bob to be all the way over here. He's all by himself. He will get captured. You want to move your checkers together like a castle defense, like a wall. So that way you can protect each other. The checkers can protect each other as you're moving forward. And so you want to typically only use the first two rows, and you want to keep your back row full. Reason being, keeping the back row full, remember, checkers can only move on dark pieces. If my back row is full, there's no, and remember, when you're capturing a piece, you have to be able to jump to the other side. If my back row is full, there are no dark squares, and my opponent cannot jump over and capture. And so effectively, my opponent is just stuck there, and he cannot crown his pieces. You don't want your opponent to get a king because it greatly turns the game in his favor. So if you keep your pieces in the back row for as long as you can, stall it out, prevents your opponent from crowning, and you have pieces that are safe that can never be captured. So that's the basic rule. You also might want to sacrifice pieces. So if you can sacrifice a piece to either get a king or protect your king, you would like to do that. And your number one focus to win a checkers game should be to crown as many pieces as you can. Get as many kings as you can. And that's basically it. Obviously, practice makes perfect. And if you really want to improve, you could watch professional checkers tournaments and see what professional checkers players do in order to improve. But now let's just start out with the game. So we'll do a quick demo here. I'll move my piece there. Obviously, I cannot jump over yet. So I'll just move my piece here. Let's use some of the strategies we talked about. So we're going to keep our pieces in the back for as long as possible. In this version of checkers, it's not forcing you to capture your opponent's piece, but in a real tournament, you are forced to capture your opponent's piece whenever you can. And so, what am I going to do here? Now, like I said, I don't know if this version of the game has it, but in actual tournament version and in real life, you have to keep capturing checkers. You have to keep going until you made all the moves you can capturing checkers. So I'm going to move my piece there. I guess this version doesn't have it. But in real life, we would have been able to jump over once, jump over again, crowning our piece as well. And so I'm going to stay consistent to the rules I outlined, even though this version is a bit different, just so you can see how it feels to actually play. So I can capture a piece there, so I'm forced to do it. Like I said, I can capture a piece there, I'm forced to do it. And look, I crown my piece. It has a little crown over there. So my king can move backwards. Now that's going to get my king captured if I move my king there, so I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to choose this. Focus on crowning another piece. And look, our strategy of keeping our piece in the back row has worked. Notice these side pieces are also good because you cannot get captured on them. So if you can get your piece in the side pieces, it's quite a good strategy. And look, we can go backwards and capture this piece. Now, let's play another game here. And we'll go with a much harder difficulty. So, I guess you'll see how it really goes. And so, now you'll see some of our strategies. This is a much harder difficulty, and so let's see if we can make use of some of the strategies we talked about here. Some of those great strategies. Oh, so he just took that piece, but we'll take that piece. And so I'm forced. See, now I forgot to turn that option on. But see, if you can capture your opponent's piece, you are forced to do it. Notice, the only two glowing pieces are the ones, now like I said, remember I outlined before? If you have multiple checkers that can capture a piece, you can make a decision as to which one you would like to capture a piece. Other than that, you are forced to capture the piece if you only have one move. Now in this case, I have two checkers. I have two checkers that can capture the opponent's piece. So I get to pick which one I would like to capture the opponent's piece. So look, he just did a double jump there. So this is quite the game so far. It's quite competitive. And so we're forced. So I'm actually going to remember, try to keep your pieces in the back as long as you can, right? That's the strategy. That's the strategy. And so he is going to get a king there. And this does put us in a bad spot here. But we'll see. We'll see what to do about it. We'll see. We just moved our piece out of danger there. Now we crowned a piece there. We corner that piece there. Notice how I'm trying to make, notice how I moved my piece. I don't know if you caught it there, I moved my piece out of danger. So notice how I'm moving my pieces out of danger. Now our objective is just to crown as many pieces as we can. Obviously we're forced to take that. Oh, so that was a smart move there. He was trying to, now look what I said about these edge pieces. You cannot capture a piece on the edge, so that's why it's quite smart. That's my only piece and he will capture it. So we ended up, this is quite a competitive game. So right now we're just going back and forth, trying to figure out a proper option. I do have multiple pieces that can be used, so I'm going to get all of them in play here. And so we ended up getting the win here. But that, sorry, I was a bit silent here trying to focus on the game, but you guys saw some of the rules I was talking about. If you can capture a piece, you're forced to jump it. If you have multiple pieces that can capture, then you're given a choice, but you are only given a choice between the 2 pieces that can actually do the capture, or 3 pieces, or however many. If you get to the end of the board, you can crown a king. And look, our strategy of trying to stay at the edge and keeping as many in the back as we can worked flawlessly. Remember, guys, the pieces on the edge are the most important because you cannot get captured on any of these edge pieces. There's no way an opponent can jump over you. There's no square behind you on which your opponent's piece can land. And so staying on the edge, one of the most key pivotal strategies in checkers. Obviously watch some high level checker tournaments, but that's pretty much it. Thank you.